Hi everyone, welcome back to my channel. This is Josie's Point of View, where we focus on human interest stories from the Carolinas and beyond. Today it's Saturday and it's April the 17th, 2021. Thank you so much for tuning in. As you already know, the month of April is Sexual Assault Awareness Month, and I've decided to begin each video with some statistic. My objective is to pay tribute to the millions of survivors out there, and I especially want to encourage them to find their voice and to no longer keep their abuse a secret. It's shocking to know that the majority of sexual assaults are never reported, and as such, the individuals committing these crimes are never brought to justice. Today, my focus is on the military. Here are a few statistics. In a published report by the Department of Defense in August of 2020, which was last August, it showed that over 20,000 military men and women were sexually assaulted and raped in 2018. Of that number, 7,500 were men, and the majority of that crime, similar to the civilian sector, were never reported. In 2019, the number was over 19,000, just as bad. And then you have an undisclosed but significant number of instances involving sexual abuse by medical providers, a problem that continues to receive very little oversight, very little attention. And please don't think for one second that veterans are not significantly impacted by this problem, because we are, but it's not a problem the VA seems ready to discuss, and that's where my focus takes us today. And our story today takes us to Charleston in South Carolina. Take a look at the headline. And it reads, VA doctor gets 25 years for sexually assaulted male veterans. I'll provide you with a summary here, and as always, I'll place links to a few of the full articles in the description box. Now, as we begin this video, I want to add a disclaimer. This video contains mature content and makes reference to body parts and sexual acts. It's probably very mild compared to some of what you hear on other channels. And even though it is appropriately cataloged in YouTube, I feel compelled to say it was not designed with children in mind. Well, this video is really a follow-up to a story I provided you last year. I believe it was in October, and it dealt with this gentleman, Dr. Jonathan Yates, a doctor of osteopathic medicine or a chiropractor, and he was working for the VA hospital in Beckley, West Virginia. Dr. Yates was facing charges from 40 male veterans who reported that he had sexually assaulted them under the disguise of providing medical care. The VA did not initially take any action on this case, and it was several months into the investigation, as more and more patients were joining a lawsuit against the hospital and Dr. Yates, that the VA eventually went ahead and terminated his employment. And by the time the VA got around to actually firing him, the Inspector General's office, the FBI, and the local district attorney were deep into the investigation, and they found there was sufficient evidence to take the case to a grand jury, who indicted Dr. Yates on 7 counts of sexual assault, violating the civil rights of men, and causing them bodily harm. And I want to say, not only did he physically assault them, it was done to such a degree that it left some of them with physical injuries after the assault. The case was scheduled to go to trial last August, and just a few days before the trial was to begin, Dr. Yates pled guilty to 3 counts of sexual assault. Specifically, Dr. Yates admitted to rubbing the genitals of 2 male patients. He temporarily immobilized the 2 men. One, he did so by cracking his neck, and the other by using acupuncture needles on him. After they were immobilized, he admitted that he sexually assaulted them. For a 3rd veteran, Dr. Yates admitted that he digitally penetrated the victim's rectum when there was absolutely no reason for him to do so, and that he also sexually molested him. So this case started out with the Inspector General's office and the district attorney looking at 40 cases, and from those 40 cases, Dr. Yates was indicted on 7 counts by the grand jury, and then he pled guilty to 3 counts of assault. He was scheduled for sentencing in January of 2021, and I have to admit, I was one of those people who said out loud, this is just a joke. There will never be justice for the victims, and his punishment would be nothing more than a slap on the wrist. And I based my decision on previous sexual assault cases involving the VA, where in my view, the accused received more compassion than any of the victims. But in this instance, I was wrong. Dr. Jonathan Yates was sentenced to 25 years for molesting those patients, and that will be followed by 3 additional years of supervised release. And I'm sure he also has to register as a sex offender. Now, this sentence of Dr. Jonathan Yates, that 25 years plus 3 years of probation, clearly sends a strong message that in the state of Virginia, sexual abuse for veterans will not be tolerated. But it makes me wonder whether or not there is indeed a double standard, because I look back at 2 other cases involving veterans, involving female veterans, and essentially all the practitioners received was a slap on the wrist. Now, take a brief review, and then I'll come back with my closing summary. And while doing my research, I came across 2 new cases that I want to share with you. And here's the first. His name is Edgar Manzanera, a 38-year-old medical doctor, and he was a contract doctor working for the VA in a clinic in Oceanside, California. He was contracted by the VA to do disability pension examination on veterans. So essentially, if veterans were filing for disability claims, the VA sent them for an examination by an outside physician. And those medical appointments are coordinated by an agency called QTC. It's called QTC Medical Group. And that's how this doctor really became affiliated with veterans, because he was indeed working in a clinic for QTC. This story was first reported by the Los Angeles Times, so I want to make sure that I'm giving them credit. But last year, several patients had filed a lawsuit against Dr. Manzanera, accusing him of false imprisonment and sexual battery. The claims were serious enough to generate a VA Inspector General investigation with involvement from the California Attorney General's office, or the Los Angeles Attorney General's office. It was alleged in these charges that Dr. Manzanera sexually exploited multiple women under the pretense of medical care by administering unnecessary vaginal examination, which also included penetration with an object as well as inappropriate touching of these women. One victim stated she was made to get naked when there was no medical reason for her to do so, and then she was made to place her gown over her head while he did what he did. And you know what I'm talking about. I don't have to be any more explicit. A grand jury indicted Dr. Manzanera on 5 counts of sexual assault and sexual exploitation, plus 4 counts of penetration with a foreign object. And I'm sure there were other charges that were not specified. And I'm sure there were numerous plea negotiations between his legal team and the state attorney general's office. But they finally reached a compromise right before they were to begin his trial. The doctor was allowed to plead guilty to 1 count of sexual exploitation by a physician, and he had to admit that his acts were committed against multiple women. And also the 4 counts of illegal penetration with a foreign object were dismissed. And while I have your attention, let me share with you another case of sexual abuse by a medical provider. And this time it's at the Watertown VA Clinic in upstate New York. And we're talking about 78-year-old Dr. Jerome Collier. And it's a similar case to what I just presented with you, because Dr. Collier had been rubbing and playing on the private parts of both men and women during examinations. And he got caught. And he also had sex with some of them too. But in May of last year, he was indicted on 6 counts of forcibly touching, 5 counts of third-degree sexual abuse, and 1 count of fourth-degree sexual abuse, and it was specified that these acts were conducted against multiple patients. And as the norm, the VA allowed him to continue working in the clinic while the charges against him were made. I know he lost his medical license, but it was unclear if this case has reached a conclusion. So if anyone out there knows any additional information about this case in upstate New York, send me a message, because I'd like to be able to talk about it, especially to talk about the sentence he receives. Well, I can tell you that both of these physicians received probation. They lost their medical license, but they did not go to jail. All they received for probation. And my question is this: why such disparities in sentences? Why did New York and California give their physician really a slap on the wrist and send them on their way? How can these sentences be classified as justice for victims of sexual assault? But thanks to West Virginia for sending that very strong message, maybe now other states need to stand up and show their support for veterans. Show that they value us. And they value the contributions we have made to this country, because we certainly deserve better than we've received thus far. I think it's just a darn shame that we spend the remainder of our lives after retirement just struggling with the effects of military life. And at a time where we just want to be cared for, you have healthcare professionals out here who are preying on us and disrupting our lives forever. I think it's time to change the laws. No more darn probation for any of them. Send them all to jail. I think it's time for veterans to come together and begin a letter writing campaign to their respective delegates. And if they do not support initiatives to keep us safe, to protect us from these medical predators, we need to vote them out of office. And that's all I have for you right now. Feel free to leave me a message below and let me know what you think about this video. And by all means, feel free to like and to share. And if you haven't done so already, I want to invite you to subscribe to my channel by clicking on that red subscribe button on the bottom right-hand corner of your screen. And if you click on this notification bell right here, you'll be the first to know whenever a new video is uploaded. I thank you for watching, and I'll talk to you soon. Bye.